The transport shuttle's engines hummed with mechanical precision as Corporal Jace Wren adjusted his standard-issue rifle for the third time in 10 minutes. Through the reinforced viewport, the sprawling capital city of Valdris Prime stretched across the horizon like a metallic organism, its towers spiraling impossibly high into the purple-tinged atmosphere. Nervous, human. The voice carried the unmistakable tone of condescension, each syllable pronounced with deliberate precision. Princess Zeralii of the Vorkari Dominion stood at the center of the passenger compartment, her pale purple skin seeming to glow under the shuttle's artificial lighting. Dark curls framed her angular face, and her amber eyes held nothing but disdain as they fixed on Jace. Her exoarmor was a masterpiece of Vorkari engineering, sleek obsidian plates that moved like liquid shadow with each of her movements. Energy conduits pulsed with soft blue light along the seams, and the helmet's retracted visor revealed technology that made human military gear look like stone tools. "Just doing my job, Your Highness," Jace replied evenly, though his jaw tightened slightly. 3 days into this diplomatic escort mission, and she hadn't missed a single opportunity to remind him of his supposed inferiority. Zeralii laughed, a sound like crystal bells touched with frost. "Your job? Yes, how quaint." She gestured dismissively at his weapon. "That primitive projectile launcher might serve against your own kind, but here. You're little more than ceremonial decoration." To demonstrate her point, she activated a combat sequence. Her armor responded instantly, weapon systems emerging from hidden compartments, targeting arrays painting red dots across the shuttle's walls. The display lasted mere seconds before everything retracted seamlessly. "In 300 years of Vorkari military history," she continued, "no human has ever proven themselves worthy of true combat partnership. Your species lacks the neural complexity for advanced warfare integration." Jace said nothing, watching as she moved with predatory grace to the observation deck. He'd studied her file extensively, elite warrior caste, decorated veteran of 7 major campaigns, heir to one of the most powerful military dynasties in known space. Everything about her radiated lethal competence and absolute confidence in her superiority. What she didn't know was that Jace had spent 2 years studying hybrid technology integration systems, including several classified Vorkari prototypes. Approaching diplomatic zone, the pilot announced. "Prepare for atmospheric entry." Princess Zeralii barely acknowledged the announcement, too busy admiring her reflection in the viewport surface, clearly pleased with the image of invincibility she projected. The diplomatic convoy had barely reached the outer checkpoints when the world exploded into chaos. Rebel forces emerged from concealed positions, their weapons crackling with electromagnetic discharge that sent the lead vehicles careening off the designated path. Ambush. All units, defensive positions. Jace's training kicked in as he dove behind reinforced barriers, his rifle already tracking targets through the smoke and debris. Princess Zeralii moved like liquid death incarnate. Her armor's combat protocols engaged fully, transforming her into a one-woman assault force. Energy blades extended from her gauntlets as she carved through rebel positions with terrifying efficiency, her movements a deadly ballet of precision strikes and defensive maneuvers. "Is this the best your enemies can manage?" she called out mockingly, even as plasma bolts seared the air around her. "Perhaps you should leave this to." The explosion came from nowhere, a hidden mine that detonated directly beneath her feet. The blast sent her armored form tumbling across the battlefield, systems sparking and failing as she hit the ground hard. Jace fought his way toward her position, cutting down 2 rebels who tried to intercept him. When he reached her, his blood ran cold. Zeralii was conscious but trapped, her armor's emergency locks had engaged, sealing her inside what was rapidly becoming a technological coffin. "The respiratory systems are failing," she gasped, her voice distorted through damaged speakers. Red warning lights cascaded across her chest plate as internal pressure built dangerously. "I can't, the manual overrides aren't responding." "Don't move," Jace ordered, dropping to his knees beside her. His hands moved across the armor's surface, finding the hidden diagnostic ports he'd studied in classified technical manuals. The blast damaged the primary control matrix. If we don't get you out of this suit in the next few minutes. A human cannot possibly understand Vorkari military technology, she wheezed, but for the first time, uncertainty crept into her voice. Maybe not all of it, Jace admitted, his fingers working quickly across microswitches and pressure points. But I know hybrid integration systems. Your armor uses modified human neural interfaces in the backup circuits. Her amber eyes widened in shock as he began the delicate process of emergency disengagement. The irony wasn't lost on either of them, the primitive, human technology she'd mocked was now her only hope for survival. Trust me, he said quietly, meeting her gaze through the cracked visor. I won't let you die. The armor removal process was painstakingly delicate. Each piece had to be disengaged in precise sequence, or the remaining systems could catastrophically overload. Jace worked with surgeon-like precision, his hands steady despite the ongoing firefight around their position. The chest plate needs to come off first, he explained, his fingers finding the emergency release mechanisms. This is going to feel strange, the neural disconnection can cause disorientation. Zeraliai's breathing had become labored, each breath a visible struggle. As the primary chest piece detached with a soft hiss of escaping pressure, she gasped in relief, her body no longer compressed by the failing life support systems. How do you know this? She whispered, her voice now clear and unfiltered. Without the armor's bulk, she seemed smaller somehow, more fragile than he'd ever imagined possible. 2 years working with hybrid tech recovery teams, Jace replied, carefully removing the arm components. We had to learn Vorkari systems to salvage battlefield equipment. His fingers brushed against her bare shoulder as he worked, and he felt her shiver slightly at the contact. As each piece of armor fell away, a different person emerged. The pale purple skin he'd only glimpsed was now revealed in its entirety, smooth and warm, with intricate silver markings along her arms that spoke of royal lineage. Her dark curls, freed from the helmet's constraints, fell softly around her face. I've never. She began, then stopped, vulnerability replacing her usual arrogance. No one outside my personal attendants has ever seen me without the armor. Not since my warrior trials began. Jace's movements slowed as he realized what she was sharing with him. In Vorkari culture, the removal of battle armor was deeply personal, almost sacred. Warriors lived and died in their suits, to be seen without them was to be utterly exposed. You saved my life, she said softly, her amber eyes meeting his with an expression he'd never seen before, gratitude mixed with something deeper, more complex. I mocked you, called you primitive, and yet here we are, he finished gently, settling beside her in the protective alcove they'd found shelter in. The sounds of battle had faded, reinforcements had finally arrived to deal with the remaining rebels. For the first time since they'd met, Zeraliai looked at him not as a superior viewing a subordinate, but as one person truly seeing another. The change was profound, transformative. What happens now? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. They waited in the sheltered alcove for extraction, but the rescue teams were hours away. Zeraliai had wrapped herself in Jace's military jacket, the simple human garment a stark contrast to her sophisticated armor, now lying in damaged pieces around them. I've spent my entire life in that suit, she said, pulling the jacket closer around her shoulders. Since I was 12 years old, when I began warrior training. I'd forgotten what it felt like to just breathe. Jace watched her carefully, noting how different she seemed without the imposing presence of her armor. More human, in a way, despite her alien heritage. Is that why you became so dismissive of others? The armor made you feel invincible? She was quiet for a long moment. Perhaps. When you're raised to believe you're superior, when everything around you reinforces that belief. She looked at him with newfound curiosity. Tell me about your world. Your people. I realize I know nothing real about humans. As they talked, the distance between them seemed to shrink. Jace spoke of Earth, of his childhood, of the dreams that had led him to the stars. Zeralii shared stories of her homeworld, of the pressure of royal expectations, of nights when she'd gazed at distant stars and wondered what lay beyond her prescribed path. "You're not what I expected," she admitted, her hand reaching out tentatively to touch his. The contact sent warmth through both of them. "When I first saw you, I thought you were just another weak human. But you're kind. Brave. You saw past my cruelty." "You weren't cruel," Jace said softly, his thumb tracing over her knuckles. "You were scared. Scared of showing weakness, of not living up to expectations." Her amber eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "No one has ever understood that before." The space between them disappeared as she leaned closer. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, a bridge across the vast cultural divide that had separated them. When they parted, both were breathing heavily. "This complicates things," she whispered against his lips. "Maybe," he agreed, his forehead resting against hers. "But some complications are worth it." She smiled then, the first genuine smile he'd ever seen from her, and it transformed her entire face. When she kissed him again, it was with more confidence, more passion, her hands fisting in his shirt as years of rigid control finally cracked. "Stay with me tonight," she breathed. "I don't want to be alone." The rescue ships arrived as the first rays of dawn painted the sky in shades of amber and violet. Jace and Zeralii had spent the night in each other's arms, their bodies intertwined beneath the emergency thermal blanket, sharing more than just warmth as they whispered secrets and dreams they'd never dared voice before. "Princess Zeralii." Commander Vex's voice boomed across the clearing as the rescue team approached. The grizzled Vorkari officer's relief was palpable until his eyes fell upon the scene, his princess wrapped in a human's jacket, sitting intimately close to the very soldier she'd dismissed days earlier. Zeralii rose gracefully, but didn't move away from Jace. The morning light caught the silver markings on her exposed arms, making them shimmer like liquid starlight. "Commander," she acknowledged with regal composure, though her hand remained firmly clasped in Jace's. "Your Highness, we must get you to medical immediately. Your armor's failure was resolved by Corporal Wren," she interrupted, her voice carrying an authority that brooked no argument. "His expertise with hybrid technologies saved my life when Vorkari engineering failed me." The implications hung heavy in the air. For a princess to publicly acknowledge a human superiority in any field was unprecedented. Commander Vex's expression shifted from confusion to dawning understanding as he noticed their joined hands. Furthermore, Zeralii continued, her amber eyes blazing with determination, "I'm officially requesting Corporal Wren's permanent assignment to my personal guard. His unique qualifications make him invaluable." Aboard the transport ship, Zeralii led Jace to her private quarters, ignoring the scandalized whispers of her retinue. Once alone, she turned to face him, her hands framing his face tenderly. "Are you prepared for what comes next?" she asked softly. "The court will call me foolish, corrupted by human influence. They'll question every decision I make." Jace pulled her closer, his lips brushing against her forehead. "Let them question. You're the strongest person I know, human or Vorkari. And what we have." He paused, meeting her gaze intensely, "What we discovered together is worth fighting for." She kissed him then, deep and passionate, pouring all her newfound emotions into the contact. When they broke apart, both were breathless. "Then we fight," she whispered against his lips. "Together, as equals. No more armor between us, no more walls." As their ship approached the capital's gleaming spires, Princess Zeralii of the Vorkari Dominion stood hand in hand with the human who had stripped away more than just her armor, he had freed her heart.